Yo, we're gonna have Boardman join us in just a second. Um, yeah, I'm gonna let him do his intro, but this guy's been a long time inspiration and mentor, and it's gonna be good to ask him some questions. I just got done with his interview with Frantic he did yesterday, and I got a lot of questions for him. So, Boardman,
Hey, what up? What up?
chilling. How you doing, man?
Awesome. I like that hat.
Yo, gotta represent, man. I'm repping my homie's artwork too.
Nice.
Yeah,
Dodger
man.
colors.
LA Funk, man.
Yeah. Nice, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying I just got done with the interview you did with Frantic yesterday. Seemed like you guys touched on a lot of your personal history in this dance, and it was a really good interview with more questions though, so I hope you're ready.
Yeah, I've done a little research and everybody tells me you're the new Geraldo Rivera of popping.
Oh my God. Yeah, man, I don't know. Maybe it'll become that, but I'm just my goal is just to connect people with the resources that I've been blessed to have being in the place that I'm from, and yeah, I've had these conversations with you and all the people I'm close with, but now it's cool. I just get to document them, and people around the world just like they get to benefit. So it's great. It's a win-win.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm glad to be involved, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm honored. Like, I think it's a little important that we kind of cover a few others, like the stuff you covered yesterday. But maybe you can just tell a little bit about like how you started and where you're from, and what crew you're a part of and all that.
You guys aren't getting tired of hearing that?
No, man, we never. I mean, this is for the books. We got to put this on YouTube and all. So,
Okay. All right. All right. So I started popping when I was living in Pomona. Raised in Pomona. That's my home. That's the launching pad. I'm not in Pomona anymore, but I'm always going to claim that. That's where you say that's where I earned my stripes.
yeah.
I started popping, around junior high school age, and by the time I was in high school, I had realized that this was a serious thing for me. I wanted
Mm,
it to be something serious, and that I wanted to try to carve a future, some sort of a path out of it for me in the future. Um, and eventually ended up teaming up with a few other guys from different areas of Pomona, and a cat named Dr. Doom started a group called the Groov-A-Trons. And that name, yesterday I didn't get a chance to talk about that because I think that name is kind of important because there's a story behind it. There was a
yeah.
lot of, in the 80s, there were a lot of Trons and there were a lot of skis, right? Joe
Mm.
ski and rock ski and all this. Uh, but, and there was a lot of Trons in the 80s. That name actually goes back to the 70s when the Jackson 5 had a Saturday morning cartoon. And little Michael in the cartoon had a assignment in school in a science project, and he built a robot. Well, because it was the Jacksons, his robot was a musical dancing machine, and he named it
Oh,
the Groovatron.
oh, snap.
So
That's crazy.
a few years ago, I looked it up and it was on YouTube. Now, I haven't gone to try to find it lately, and I know that many of the YouTube, things, they got copyright this and copyright that. So those things get taken off. But that's the story of the name Groovatrons. Uh,
Wow.
we hijacked it from the Jackson 5 cartoon when Little Michael made a robot.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I never knew that. I never knew that. I gotta go look that up now.
Yeah.
So Doom was the one that kind of orchestrated the crew coming together.
Yeah. Dr.
Okay.
Doom. Dr. Doom was the one who kind of went out and started trying to get like the top guys from the different parts of Pomona to come together and form, you know, like a super group, and to kind of take it from just battle in neighborhood in high school in Pomona to going outside of Pomona and trying to, you know, make some noise, which we were pretty effective at doing. You know, we
Yeah.
raised some hell for a while.
Yeah, yeah. So then so he recruited you, Stokes, No Bone Tyrone, and a couple others, right?
So No Bone Tyrone is like, you know, an uncle to me and to most of us. Mad respect, much love, heavy influence. You know, one of the leaders in Pomona, but he was never technically a member of the Groov-A-Trons back then.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But we've always had nothing but love for him. And as a matter of fact, he's a little bit older. At the time that we were making all this noise, he had graduated high school and gone off to college. So he wasn't, you know, he
Oh,
had left to go, you know, get his education and his career on track.
I see. So one of my main things was like, how did the Pomona style begin to create itself? You know, I'm really curious to hear how, like, what was it about like waves that became notorious for Pomona? When did that start, or like how did that start?
So there was, it's not just the waves, you know, when, you know, that's kind of like the top billing thing nowadays. But back then it was about, there was this gangster like smoothness that was important. And
Yeah.
the waves kind of fit right into that philosophy. But there were cats like obviously No Bone Tyrone, Stretch, who, you know, I've always looked up to, both of those guys. And there are other guys that made a big impact in Pomona. There's this one cat that you guys may have never heard of, Captain Pimo, who was, you know, he was putting in work in the streets for real, but he was a dope ass popper. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was mad smooth and clean with his style. Because he was putting in work in the street, he couldn't be seen popping doing some corny shit. So,
Oh,
you know, it
shit.
was important for him to always kind of, you know, keep it for real. Cat named Doc, that was from the same neighborhood as Dr. Doom. Doc was mad smooth. Had one of the best moonwalks. Well, I'm tripping now. I'm falling into the whole thing. He had one of the best backslides I ever saw.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he was like crazy with the backslide, where, you know, we'd be at Ganesha Park. They'd have the Sunday jams at the park, and he would be up on the grass, kind of on a hill, and he would just take off and backslide across the whole, you know, grass area. And everybody would just freeze up, and, you know, you'd see the whole crowd pointing and be like, oh, wow, look at that. You know, so there was several people that influenced that. There's a cat named Danny Cole. I don't know that you guys have heard much about, who had a big influence on Stokes.
Mm.
Danny Cole, like, had this training routine that he passed down to Stokes, and he had, like, and you have to talk to Stokes to get more about this, because what he shared with me were some things that I remember, is that, like, with Danny Cole, it was real important just the way you would walk into the circle, you
Mm.
know?
Mm.
So those kind of things, and it was all done about being smooth. You know, you got to be cool, because you got to keep in mind that now you guys go to these jams. I go to these jams. I see you guys getting down. It's 400 guys and maybe 10 girls, and those girls are there to bust. Okay,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
girls
yeah.
are there to put in work in the cipher. Back then, it was a 50-50, you know, ratio, and
Yeah.
we were on a mission, not just a battle, but to collect phone numbers.
Yeah.
So, you know, you weren't going to show up and jump into a circle and be corny. You had to be cool, because you were auditioning for the girls, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't care how hard you bang. They don't want to see that.
Well, no, some of them do, no, because they're the toughest critics. If you come in whack and you have the girls saying, ooh, he's whack. You're done. Like, how do you
Yeah.
recover from that? You know,
Yeah.
so you got to win everybody.
Yeah, no, it's a real interesting way to look at it. I was thinking about it when I was interviewing Frank. I didn't get a chance to ask him about it, but there is an art of seduction when it comes to dance. It's both, like when you go to the gym and everybody's lifting weights, most of those guys that are mad swole, they're lifting weights for dudes, let's be honest. Like they're like flexing on guys to take the alpha male position. But like when you're in a dance setting, there is multiple components. So you're trying to attract people, but also portray dominance. So I think that's probably a bit two big components in Pomona, because you have like a real street culture, like, so you do have to flex on people sometimes to show and state your claim, but then also like the girl also wants to feel like she's protected in some type of way. And so she doesn't want some guy that's just like, you know, just super fluid and groovy, but
Right.
someone that can hold it down. So that makes
Right.
sense a lot.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There, everything had a edge to it. There was always an edge to it. Back in the early 90s, I worked with some people and we published a hip hop newspaper right around the same time the Source magazine was getting off and beginning to publish. Obviously, the Source magazine made it. We kind of fizzled out. Budgeting didn't work. But the first article that I wrote, and this is in like 91, 92, was
Oh, wow.
kind of a rejection to, I saw an ad in the Penny Saver and the Classifieds for somebody that was teaching hip hop dance at a local community center. And I saw that and it just like totally twisted me up inside. So I had to say something. So my article was basically explaining that you can't really go learn this in a school, because in our experience, where our experience and the way that it happened for us, there was no school to go learn from. So I saw that initially at that time as a way of watering it down. Obviously, over time, I've seen a difference. I look at it differently now, because I believe that there are legitimate people with the right intention and the right appreciation for the culture to push it forward and to teach it and spread it. And that's why we have it all over the world now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but at that time, it was kind of a conflict for me to see that.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah. I mean, it brings up a good point as far as, I've talked with I'm friends with some of the professors at USC, and USC's contracted some real like street dancers to come into the university and have full-time positions. And they always struggle with that same fact, as, they didn't come up that way, but now, okay, you got kids going to USC dance school, like those weren't the same kids that were learning the street dance in the way that you learned it, right? So
right.
it's like, okay, how do we pass on a culture through a classroom? So it's not just a knowledge thing, it's also an experiential thing. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
and for example, I kind of take it a little deeper there. Sorry, I'm sitting on the patio and there's a truck driving by.
Oh, no worries.
There's a part of this where, I was trying to explain to Frank that back then we didn't just go to the jams only to pop. We were going and we would be involved with we were in the party dances also. So we were there dancing with the girls all night.
Yeah.
And then you would pop for a little while and then go back to the dance floor with the girls. So is that sound interrupted? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. So that's a big part of the culture. We practiced the party dances,
Yeah.
because again, you gotta be smooth. You gotta be on it. You gotta look good at every step of the night. You know, if you go out there, and, you know, give you an example. We used to kill it on the cha-cha.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
And I don't see the new school doing that much. Now they call it stepping, and you know they got different terms for it. And it's usually the older folks, but bro, we had a ball with that. That was the bomb, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And that wasn't super fast. That was kind of a mid-tempo jam. So
yeah.
you know we enjoyed that. It was part of the whole thing, and it was part of the culture and the experience, not just for us, but for everybody at the jams.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's this thing, this idea of culture being, you know, kind of related to race. And there's a kind of a big debate about it. Now, I mean, there's not much debate about where this music comes from and where the culture originated from, but the idea of uh, when does somebody become a part of the culture and no longer a guest? You know, for example, if you're white and then you go into a culture that is its origins are of African American or African or Latino, when does that person become now a piece of the culture rather than just a guest?
Wow. That's a really good question. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that because I don't consider myself a guest by any means, but I do feel as if I'm um, legitimate as a member of the popping culture because of the time put in. And I was accepted as a member of the popping culture in the beginning because of my I lived in the neighborhood. I was a member of the community that became the poppers before we were poppers.
Yeah.
You know, so with that, but that's a really good. That's going to be D-Soul's sociology book right there. You know, I guess if I had to like give you an answer, my response would probably to try to remain completely respectful and be that when that person is contributing in a positive way, you
Mm.
know, if you're respectful and you understand and you're contributing in a way that brings more people into it with respect and not just to hijack it, milk it, and then bounce.
Yeah.
Because we saw that in the 80s, in the mid and the late 80s, we saw, you know, the exploitation. They hijacked it, they sucked everything out of it, and then they bounced, and then it faded out, you know, and then we
Mm.
wait until 10 years or whatever to go by for the 90s, for the underground to gradually bring it back. And
Mm.
I see some similar things happening in the popularity now, you know, because it's
Mhm.
grown so much and it's so popular. And you see so many different, you know, so-called hip hop dance crews in, you know, schools and in, you know, different dance groups and things like that, that are not really connected with the street or the culture or, you know, the authentic part of it. They have no connection to the underground, you know,
Yeah.
and that always makes me a little nervous.
Yeah. I think you know, I was having a conversation with Assad the other day, but the idea of like a culture adopting you is it I think a big part of that picture, as far as uh you know, you for example, like I wanted to get back to what you were talking about when you said I'm when you were Pomona is where you were raised and that's where you earned your stripes. And I think that earn your stripes terminology that we use is also the same term for a culture adopting you. So like when you say earn your stripes, what did that look like when you did it?
Well, I was involved in like you know, well, first of all, I battled, you know, so you got to win some. I didn't win them all, you know, I
Yeah.
didn't win them all, but I won my share. And I was a very active participant in pushing the group forward, helping the group, you know, to get out and find different opportunities to showcase our skills. And it was like I was trying to explain to Frantic yesterday that, you know, when I saw Stokes and Stretch hit a routine the first time and throw the ball, you know, everybody now throws the ball. This is like all over the world. They see cats in Europe doing it. You know, the first time I ever saw anybody take a wave and create a ball with it and then throw it at the next guy, and that guy catch it and let it run through his body and then throw it back, that was Daryl Stokes and Mr. Stretch. Oh,
Yeah.
man, this truck is like pulling up in my yard right now.
It's all good.
Sorry. So
It's all good.
So when I see them do that, I immediately start thinking, man, we gotta find a way to show the world, you know, and you know, we then kind of brainstormed and we looked for ways to get out and show the world. So that was a big thing for me. That was important for me, something that I'm proud of doing. And that doesn't mean I was the only one. It just means that I took that part very serious, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, I just put in work all the time, man. You know, I mean, just like you, I see you when you're doing everything you do seems to be revolving around getting better and training, right? Back then, that was my life. That's what we did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What did training look like for you back then? You know, like I'm always curious about how people train, you know, how to get better at something. So it's not just necessarily dance, right? We build these mental processes that how we kind of attack or approach problems. But what did you do like back in the day to level up?
Well, it was really like one move at a time back then for me personally. So I would, you know, come up with, if I came up with a move or a transition from one move to another, because very often maybe I had a move that was kind of in the tut kind of sphere, you know, early tutting, and I wanted to get into some footwork and they didn't kind of blend. I had to figure out what's a good transition. How am I going to set this up? So that would be something I would spend time on. And then really my training really, I feel like really advanced when I started getting down with Stokes and Stretch, because Stokes had such a disciplined training routine and his methods that it was so common sense after you see it and after he talks about it, that it just made total sense. Like there was no harm in practicing the fundamentals over and over and over, to the point where it's just like muscle memory. When you throw an arm wave, you're no longer even thinking about it. And you know, because you practiced it, you know, 500 times in the last week, that it's going to be clean and your shoulders are going to roll proper, you know, and it's going to roll from one shoulder to the other, and your elbows are going to twist right, you know, and it's all going to come through. So those kinds of things, just the repetition and the drilling was really influential. And then it got to the point where when you don't have to think about the basics anymore, it made the part where you want to explore and expand and create come easier.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's like when you ingrain the movement into your muscles, it no longer takes conscious thought. So then
Right.
when you start to create, like your mind can wander into the music or start to create with the tools that are already ingrained in your body.
Right.
Yeah, so it's Yeah, I think with this stuff, I'm curious to see like what you think about the idea of foundation, because we have this goes hand in hand with this other question that I have is when does a culture adopt innovation? Because you have people that are,
When it's dope.
when it's dope, which is
When
like
it's
that's
dope.
ours.
When it's dope. I mean,
Yeah,
that's it. When it's dope. If it's whack, or it's gonna get left out, or it may be a fad for a minute, but it's gonna phase out.
yeah.
And there's plenty of examples of that, but uh, you know that's my initial response, and that's not me even thinking through it. That's just my knee jerk reaction.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I agree with that. It's just like I think with this generation, and especially like my generation and the generation after me, we're trying to figure out I and define things so we can kind of document history and kind of build upon it, but also pay respect to where it came from. So there's all these debates on what these words mean. So how does, like, for example, like the word popping, is it an umbrella term or is it just a style in itself?
Yeah, see that whole discussion, man. I've never even gotten into that because that is just my experience. Is we treated popping in Pomona. The term popping, pop locking, was an umbrella, and
Yeah.
all of because I'll give you an example. If you're at the park on a Sunday and the music's playing and Stokes is over there and he's going in on a round and he's only hitting tuts. He's hitting box tuts. He's hitting his glove tuts. He's got all his stuff is super straight and he's only tutting. And he does that 2-3 rounds. There was nobody in the neighborhood who said, wow, he's over there tutting like crazy. They were like, damn, he's a dope ass popper.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, that was the reaction. When they see somebody going around and they're just waving, and they're waving on beat, so there's a hit every now and then, or whatever. They don't say, "Wow, he's a dope waver." That may have been a conversation among, the poppers only, but the people as a whole who were watching, the people that responded to us, it was popping or pop locking. Those were
Yeah.
the main terms.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting thing because it's like with the definitions and kind of just vocabulary that we use to describe this stuff, that like who defines the culture, right? Is like, is it from the people on the inside or is it from the general that because popping's been called a bunch of things too, like with the Bay calling it hitting or diamond or all these different terminologies, but really they're kind of just like words, like adjectives to describe what they see, and then popping became kind of this like the generally accepted term for that style, like unanimously. But at some point somebody just kind of defined it as popping. So then, like, the thing now, I think what people struggle with is you see these people, like, whether they're on TikTok or, these apps, and they're literally like in the camera, like hitting these tuts, and you're going, I don't know if that's popping still,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think that's where it
Well,
gets kind of
and
funny.
so here I'll tell you, I totally agree with you, and I have been that guy who's watching, the finger tuts, right? And they're just going
Yeah,
crazy for 10 minutes, and I'm like, man, that's amazing. But they didn't hit one time. There's no pop anywhere in that. I don't know if I really call that popping. But here's the other side of it. The other side of it is that if that inspires somebody and that attracts people and that brings more people in and makes them curious, and from that curiosity brings another D soul or brings another frantic into the community, then it's all good. So
Yeah.
I'm not one to really like police that. That's not my
Yeah.
style. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
style is, look, dude, if you want to sit there and finger tut for the next hours, just be good at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's
Just
what I'm
kill it.
saying too.
Be really, really good at it. Kill the finger tut. And
Yeah.
if you get bored with that and you want to practice actually popping, you know, maybe I can help you with that, right? You know,
Yeah.
maybe D
Yeah.
Soul can help you with, you know, developing some drills to get your hits clean, your pops clean, you know. So I'm cool with that, but I'm also at the same time a little bit guarded, like I said earlier, about the exploitation. And you know, is
Yes.
this going to get jacked? Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think that the average consumer, if we call them that, the non-dancing public, I don't think that
Mm.
they see the finger tuts and immediately think, oh, he's popping.
Yeah. No, they don't. I don't think so. Yeah. So it gets kind of squirmy because,
And I'm not
you know,
dissing finger tuts. So
oh
y'all
no.
don't DM me for the next month because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, no, no, you made it clear, man. You already said that, you know, do your finger touch, just do them dope. Like
Yeah,
that's all we
yeah,
ask.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I was also really curious about too, because I'm interested to hear about when you transitioned in kind of life in general, um, from, you know, being, you said like in 91 you were writing an article regarding,
Yeah.
um, you still much, you've always been a part of the hip hop culture, right? It's really the hip hop culture adopted popping kind of, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
that was kind of a message that I stated yesterday when I was talking to Frantic. So we were already popping. The lockers broke down all the doors. The term street dance I first heard as a reference to people who were locking and roboting. And then as popping developed and grew, then we had a network in LA on the West Coast. Even though I was a teenager in Pomona, we would go to Venice Beach, we would go to Long Beach, we would go to LA, we would go to places, events like the street scene, or we would just go to the malls. We would ride the bus to go to other high schools to do two things: to find girls and rap, you
yeah.
know, and the victor in the battle got the top choice of the girls, you know.
Mm.
So you know, we would go to the schools to battle, and we would go all over the place, and everywhere we went there was somebody there to represent. So there was a network, there was a culture, it was here before hip hop and rap, and we started learning about b-boys. So when the
Mm.
b-boy thing happened, it was like an automatic meshing, you know, it just automatically melted in. And a lot of the guys that were already popping learned how to become dope b-boys. I'm 6'5".
Mm.
I was 6'5" when I was 16. The breaking was, being a b-boy wasn't really gonna work for me.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of the guys, they made that transition and they were dope. So you know, there was a community here. The term hip hop, the rap music, all of that, it was like a magnet. It all just fit in,
Yeah.
and it meshed. So you know,
Yeah, I mean, also the music history kind of blended in as
yeah,
well. The people that were producing funk, you know, started to switch and play with sound. So it made sense that it all kind of fell under one umbrella. But it's like, yeah, the idea that dance like kind of changes as we age. You know, like the value of dance. Uh, when it comes to when we're in high school, obviously the value of dance is like real high school things. It's like real like, okay, I wanna attract who I want to attract, you know, whether it's a boy or a girl. You're trying to you know, show off basically and show your worth. And then but as you get older, you have to kind of like reevaluate what it is that you're doing, right? Like am I still just popping? Like am I just trying to get girls like at a high school level, like the one night stands or whatever? But how do you reevaluate the dance to keep increasing and mature through the movement? You know, how does it, what is the different looks that you've had through your like maturity?
Well, the first thing is the winning. You know,
Mm,
this is a super competitive thing. You know,
mm,
everything about this was, you know, competitive and always wanting to win and to be the dopest group, to win the solo battles, hit the circles and destroy, you know. So
mm.
that was an inspiration, but that doesn't pay bills, right?
Yeah,
And as you start getting older and you start looking forward into the future, then things start coming up with like, okay, how do we turn this into something that's going to be, we can support, how do we support ourselves and our families?
yeah,
So, you know, things like, you know, we set goals. Like we wanted to be in a TV show. We wanted to be in a motion picture. We wanted to, you know, work in concerts and things like that, music videos, all those things we did. You know, we did movies, we did music videos, we performed in big auditoriums, you know, with concerts and stuff. Um, Not always in front of the camera. You know, give you an example. At one point, I worked on the 1991 or 1992 Super Bowl halftime show when Michael Jackson performed the halftime show at the Rose Bowl. I was
oh
a
wow,
I was a production assistant with Radio City Music Hall for that show.
wow, that's crazy.
You know, it's a
Damn,
big show, man. I mean,
that show was
it
crazy.
was an amazing event, you know. And I worked on that for 3 weeks, like 20 hours a day.
Yeah,
Um, so, you know, there were different things that happened along the way, but you know, at the core, I'm still Boardman, and when I hear the right jam, I'm ready to bust. You know,
yeah,
even if I'm working on one of these productions in a, you know, a production assistant or as a producer or something like that, there's always something different there. So you know, does that kind of answer your question? We tried to level up in how do we turn this into something that can support us long time. And you know, the it was tough, man. You know, it didn't always work out. It was rough.
yeah,
So you know, you got to go get a 9 to 5. You know,
yeah,
and you know, I had kids early. I got married young. You know, so I had to support my family. I did what I got to do. You know, and
yeah,
this was something I always loved. And you know, when I had the opportunity, and when you know there was a community kind of bubbling back up, you know, I felt at home.
yeah, yeah. You know, I think it's a real important thing to talk about because, you know, when you're young, it fits right in. You know, you don't have responsibilities. You don't. There's nothing like nobody dependent on you. You don't even think about what you're gonna do in a year. You know, you just like, you know, where's the party at, basically. Uh, but then, you know, things start to shift, and you have to make ends meet, and bills start coming in, whether it's through like because you know you got family or you have different goals, like whether you want to own a house or things like that. Um, and you just want financial stability. You don't want to worry about like basically seeking out these jobs that may or may not happen all the time. It just gets tiring. You just can't keep doing that. And so, I mean, I try, and not everybody can be a superstar. That is just the rule of entertainment. Like if everybody was popular, then it would just decrease the value of everybody. So there's only a few that really rise to the top and can be superstars and survive. And that is not in control for most of us. It's just a lot of it's luck. A lot of it's the package that like you're born with, whether it's your facial structure or the people and things like that. So um, it's
Well,
kind of like
there is a lot more. Let me kind of jump in here and kind of share something with you. There is there is a lot more that people can do than what we often do. You know, there's a science to setting goals, and
Mhm.
there's a whole philosophy to that. And this is something that I've learned. I've had some people share this stuff with me, that I found to be very powerful. And I've worked with other people and kind of sharing this stuff. And it's not like I'm, some kind of Tony Robbins guru or something like that. That's not at all what the message is here. Just the message is that there's information out there that's free that you can get, where you can to learn how to write effective goals and how to work things so that you can start knocking down your dreams and making that stuff real. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm working on doing a Zoom class for like an hour, 90 minutes, to do kind of an introduction to that, where introduce people where to go to get that information and some study
Oh,
guides
that's
and
dope.
things like that that would help them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super dope. So everybody listening, keep your ear out for that. Go follow Boardman. Sure, he'll be posting on that. It's like for me, it's super important to know how to set goals. I mean, I keep a super detailed calendar. Yeah, I plan out every day. Like if I don't, I make sure that I've checked every box off. And if I don't do that, I feel so lost. I get distracted by just whether it's Netflix or whatever. I have to create small goals throughout the day and even goals within those goals because you have to discover, like, first you have to feel like, okay, I know what I value in this life and what I want to get out of it. And then you have to orient everything you do towards that. So it's
Yeah. And we live in a world right now where you have technology coming at you hard 24/7. And if you're not defensive and vigilant, a whole day will go by and you will be empty. You will be empty. There's plenty of studies that show that people who spend a lot of time on Facebook have lower level of self-esteem than the people who
Yeah,
hang on, you know.
that's truth, man. 100%. These companies, I mean, they're multi-billion-dollar companies that developed a technology that directly taps into your human primal wants and desires.
Yep.
And if
Yep.
you're not vigilant, like you said, it's those things are the ones that run your mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and in this day and age, like I think dancers really get sucked into it tough because you see it, all these dancers getting Insta famous or YouTube viral or whatever, and then they just end up chasing the carrot. And it's you have to figure out if that's what you want. I think, do you want to be famous, and what are you going to do with that fame? Why do you want to be famous? Do you even like dancing really, or do you just like the attention? It's like,
Right.
um, it's super important to because there was a lot of time where I kind of questioned whether I really like dance, or but I realized that the biggest component that I liked about dance was the learning aspect and the connecting with other people more than I liked the actual like form of dance. The dance was just a reflection of the internal world. It just took this form.
That's
Um,
interesting. It's interesting that that's your thing, because for me it was kind of the opposite. It was the social interaction that I got that eventually led to the internal for me.
ah,
So if you started with the internal thing and the growth internally and the socially, then that's kind of interesting, because for me, after I had, felt like, okay, well, I'm established, I have, all these friends and these connections and, trust and things like that, then I was able, at that point is when, for me, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this just for me to make myself feel better. And that's where some of the goals came in, where it's like, you know, I went through a period where I wanted to improve my flexibility. You know, I set goals like, you know, I want to be able to stretch and put my forehead on my, you know, my shin, you know, and be that flexible, things like that physically. That's not easy. You know, those were real challenges, for me at least. So, you know, that for me, it was like that. It was the social, because of my growing up and my experience was there. And then later it became kind of the internal thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it can come in both ways.
Yep.
It's the same with how the value of dance changes through your life, because for me, like, my dance now is more of it's a meditative place where I can think clearly. So I think more clear when I'm moving. So I just keep a notebook by, and I end up writing pages of stuff because I'm dancing, and then a thought will come and I'll write it down. And uh, yeah, I think the value of dance changes with different people, and I just wish, I feel like in the culture right now, there's not so much opportunity for people to mature through the culture, you know. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I don't know. I mean, I see it. I see it happening. You know, the crowd isn't going to necessarily do that. The crowd's not going to display it. When you start getting to know people is when you'll see that. But you know, I do see that happening with people who not only advance in their movement and in their style and in their dance, their expression, but they also are kind of maturing in the way that they're handling, you know, the business of their dance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see people, you know, kind of moving out of the battle circuit and into more of the professional world where they're creating more. So I see that when I look at it over a long period of time.
Yeah. Do you feel like popping for you, do you see how it crossed over into the business world at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there were a few things that I learned that were really important. One is, you know, and it sounds kind of cliche, but, you know, you don't judge people on first impression because you never really know. You know,
Yeah.
you just never really know what kind of skill or talent somebody's going to have, regardless of, in the business world, maybe they don't show up dressed or presenting themselves on the level that you are expecting them to perform at. But just because, you know, maybe they just had a really rough day. Maybe the beginning of the day was really hard for them, you know, but then they are going to be able to perform at a very high level. And, you know, there's people who've shown up, don't look anything like a dope popper, and they kill it, you know, and that's happened over and over. And then the other part, like, is just not just the popping, but just culturally, you know, growing up in my experience in Pomona, and learning to get along and to, you know, just navigate through weird situations and, you know, just all kinds of stuff over time is absolutely something that comes into play when I'm in my professional environment, because people show up and they got whatever they've got going on, and I try not to trip. I try to just, you know, roll with it and accept people the way they are, to a degree, you know, as long as you're not, you know, attacking or anything. And then we move forward with that. So I have been able in my professional career to make connections and bond with people that other people in my profession don't, simply because of my background and my life experiences.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In some ways, I feel like uh, popping and street dance culture can really provide a strong foundation for people to integrate real life skills. Like, you know, when we talk about battles and things like that, um, you know, that takes different forms as you mature through the dance as well. When you first start out, it's like this young aggression, like, you
Yeah,
know, like,
let me. I don't want to cut you off. Please don't let me be rude, but I got to say two things here. One,
yeah,
the battles that I see in these organized contests, them ain't battles. All
yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
those are
yeah.
showcase contests. You know, it's like it's basically a live Facebook performance for likes. You know, it's not a real battle. The battles are in the cipher, and then you know, or at the park. You know, that was the real battles. But there was no time limit. You know,
Yeah.
when I stood there and watched with my own eyes Stokes and Shrimp battle, you know, there's 5, 6 songs, no DJ cutting, just playing one song after the other, and these are 6, 7 minute songs. So these dudes are battling for a half hour, 45 minutes, and nobody's repeating.
Wow.
Nobody's repeating. You know,
Wow.
and it was just like amazing. You know, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of OGs, and everybody was like blown away. So those, to
What?
me,
Why did
those are
they
battles.
battle? Why did they battle?
They just had to.
They
Because
had
they were in
to.
the same room at the same place. You know, you had
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and it wasn't no diss. And afterwards, it was all love and all respect. And the next time they saw each other, Shrimp was pulling Stokes into the Gap Band Party Train video.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it was all
That's
love,
love.
all respect, but they had to. And
Yeah.
then the other thing, I had another point I wanted to make that talking about battling and these events, and
Yeah.
I lost it. Sorry.
Anyways, the Stokes and Shrimp though, like, uh, what? So they battled, and I mean, they're kind of contrasting styles. I mean, Shrimp's got this real electric, like, hard, you know, snappy hit, moving fast, and then you have Stokes, who's like calm, cool, and collected. Like, what was that like watching that?
It was two unique styles,
Yeah.
on exhibition, man. Going at it hard, and nobody was going to take a loss, so it was never going to end. I mean, I'm sorry, man. They just were going to go until, and back then that was kind of the thing. You go until somebody repeats. If you repeat a
Mm.
move, you're pretty much you're done. You know, or at
Mm.
least when somebody repeats, the other guy catches that they've repeated, then they go for the kill. You know,
Ah, yeah,
then they go
they
for the
exploit
kill.
it.
Yeah, they exploit it.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so, but both of them were very unique and at really, 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 really dope event. You know, this was at an event where it was a poppers contest that went on for 6 weeks. It was like a tournament.
Oh, snap. What
Way
was
back
this?
when. That's when we met the Unique Dominoes. That's when,
Oh,
you know, we battled the Unique Dominoes, and Boogaloo Shrimp came. He was with them at that time.
what was this
Uh,
event called?
like, I don't remember, the Southern California Poppin this or that or this. Oh my God. So, yeah, it was dope.
Wow, so it's like a 6 week tournament, and you would battle like you would have like every day or every weekend, or how
It was
did that work?
every Saturday night for like 6 weeks at a skating rink.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and
Was it like
everybody from Southern California that you could think of. We saw Cosmo, Tic Tac there. They were a crew. Boogaloo Shrimp showed up with the Unique Dominoes. The Unique Dominoes brought their whole crew. Little Tough was there. Obviously, the Unique Dominoes. The
what about
Groov-A-Trons.
Taco?
We were there deep. There was there was Mr. Lean. There was all kinds of dope poppers there, man.
Was Taco there too?
No, I think that I don't know. We never ran into Taco on those kind of events.
Ah, okay.
You
He was
know,
already famous, or?
and he was. You know, we knew who Taco was because there was always kind of this chitter chatter about what's going to happen when Stokes and Taco battle. You know,
Oh,
and that never happened that I know of, at least. But yeah, it just was always kind of that thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, dang, that's crazy. Because I mean, it's opposite ends of town, you know. It's like Pomona, and then you got like Long Beach. It's.
Yeah, and you know who was putting in mad work in Long Beach back then was the Time Bandits.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's 80s, right?
Yeah, man, the Time Bandits back then was no joke, bro.
Dang.
They were
Like
putting in work.
Deuce and
And Pierre,
Pierre.
and I want to say I think the cat's name was Tiny. There was four of them that I remember because we would see them like at the Uncle Jam's events.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, man, they were putting in work.
And were they mainly an animated style?
What does that mean?
Yeah, like as far as were they like a compilation? Because Deuce was known for bopping, right? Like these kind of um, small, micro, isolated, like vibration textures. Then you also had like guys ticking a lot, you know. So
They
that's
did
what
it
I
all.
mean.
They did it all. So there was the group makeup. A good group back then would have at least one guy who was dope in, you go down the list. You need waves, you need tuts, you got to have
Ah, okay.
the hard hitting or the bopping. You may have somebody with crazy footwork that can float. That was a big thing. That was a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
You have somebody with ground moves. So everybody's crew had like different people who specialized in different things. It was really
Mm.
rare that you would have a crew of 3 or 4 guys show up and they all do the exact same thing.
Ah, I see. I see. So everybody kind of had their role that they played in the army per se.
Exactly.
Dang, that's crazy, yo. Like that doesn't exist today, you know? It does
Yeah.
not exist. I'm like, uh, I
Well, you
that's
need to
something
get to
that
work.
I know. That's one thing that you guys were talking about yesterday with Frantic was like the idea of this kind of crew mentality versus a solo mentality. Now it's all solos.
Well, it was solo mentality because all of us we knew we had to be like dope in the solo part of it, but we also spent a great deal of time focused on the routine and the crew
Mm,
and how are we going to show up? What are we going to
mm,
wear? And
yeah.
everybody being, uniform. There's a message in that as well. All of that matters.
Yeah, the style in the 80s when it came to what people were wearing, was it like I mean, we see the Dickies workwear now, you know, with the crews printed on the back, but then you also had like in the movie Breakin', you had you know, the midriffs and stuff like that. So what was Pomona like then, you know?
We didn't have no damn midriffs. It was baggies all day, every day. Baggies, baggies. You know, and to be honest with you, I never wore Dickies back then. I wore baggies all the time. Is either
What do you mean by baggies? What is that? What do you mean by that?
dress slacks with pleats in them that are baggy around the top of the pants that get tapered towards the bottom.
Okay,
Not
okay, okay,
not that
got you.
MC Hammer parachute
Yeah.
pants. Talk about dress slacks. Look at the Time, the group The Time. Look at their
Okay.
album cover. Go look up
The
the
time.
Time album cover. Those clothes those guys are wearing, we would wear those pants with some Stacy Adams or some dress shoes,
Woo.
a dress shirt, and wear your ass out.
Dang. So it was the satin look still kind of notorious for the
Yeah,
Groove-A-Trons as well?
yeah. That was the Stokes thing. He really did that. I would do black baggies and a white shirt tucked in, some dress shoes, some pointy toe dress shoes, and I'm ready.
Dang. Hey, this is gonna end in about 20 seconds. Do you want to hop back on or you want to close this out?
Let's close it out, man, because I got all this background noise.
I got you. I got
We'll
you. We'll
schedule
continue
another
this
one.
another time.
All right, bro.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Boardman. Appreciate your time, man.
Much love, bro.
Much love. Peace.